Hello, boys and girls. Welcome back to our reading of Pippi in the South Seas. Today we will be reading chapter 10, which is called Pippi Gets Bored with Jim and Buck. So remember that we just read chapter 9, and Jim and Buck were the bandits that came to the island, and they were trying to steal all of the children's pearls, and they weren't having a lot of luck. So let's see what happens today, and especially let's find out what happens when Pippi gets bored of them. All right. The children slept soundly all night, but Jim and Buck did not. They kept on grumbling about the rain, and when it stopped, they started to argue about whose fault it was that they hadn't been able to get a hold of the pearls, and which one of them had really had the terrible idea of going to Crocodile Island in the first place. But when the sun rose and dried off their clothes, and Pippi's cheerful face popped out of the cave to say good morning, they were more determined than ever to get a hold of those pearls and leave the island as rich men. But they could not figure out how to do it. While all this was going on, Pippi's horse had begun to wonder where Tommy and Pippi and Anika had gone. Mr. Nilsson had returned from his family reunion in the jungle, and he was wondering the same thing. He also wondered what Pippi would say when she found out that he had lost his best straw hat. Mr. Nilsson jumped up on the horse's tail, and the horse trotted off with him to find Pippi. Finally, he found his way to the south side of the island, and that is where he saw Pippi stick her head out of the cave, and he whinnied happily. "Look, Pippi, there's your horse!" cried Tommy. "And Mr. Nilsson is sitting on his tail," said Anika. Jim and Buck heard this. They realized that the horse who was trotting along the beach belonged to Pippi, the little red-headed girl up in the cave. Buck went and grabbed the horse by the mane. "Now you listen, you little monster," he shouted to Pippi. "I'm going to kill your horse." "You're going to kill my horse, whom I love so dearly," said Pippi. "My nice, good horse? You can't mean it." "Oh, yes, I probably have to," said Buck. "That is, if you don't want to come here and give us all of the pearls. All of them, do you hear? Otherwise, I will kill this horse right now." Pippi looked at him gravely. "Please," she said. "I'm begging you, don't kill my horse, and do let the children keep their pearls." "You heard me," Buck said. "Hand over the pearls this minute, or else." And then in a low voice he said to Jim, "Just wait until she comes with the pearls. Then I'll get paybacks on her for that miserable rainy night. As for the horse, we'll take him along with us on board, and we can sell him on another island." He shouted to Pippi, "Well, what's it going to be? Are you coming or not?" "Yes, I'll come," said Pippi, "but don't forget that you asked for it." She skipped along the projecting rocks as lightly as if she had been walking down a garden path, and jumped down to the plateau. She stopped in front of Buck. There she stood, little and thin, with her two pigtails sticking straight out. There was a dangerous look in her eyes. "Where are the pearls, little girl?" shouted Buck. "There aren't going to be any pearls today. You'll have to play leapfrog instead." Then Buck let out a huge roar, which made Anika tremble away up in the cave. "I'm going to hurt you and your horse," he yelled as he lunged towards Pippi. "Take it easy, my good man," said Pippi. She grabbed him by the waist and threw him 10 feet up in the air. He banged himself quite hard, coming down on the rocks. Then Jim came to life. He raised his arm to smack Pippi, but she jumped aside with a little chuckle. And a second later, Jim was also on his way clear up into the morning sky. There they sat, Jim and Buck, on a rock, groaning. Pippi walked up and grabbed them, one in each fist. "You can't be as anxious to play marbles as you seem to be," she said. "There has to be some limit to your playfulness." She carried them down to the skiff and tossed them in. "Now you go home to your mothers and ask them to give you 5 cents for marbles," she said. "You'll find them just as easy to play with." A little while later, the steamer was chugging away from Kurkura Island. Since then, it has never been seen in those waters. Pippi patted her horse. Mr. Nilsson jumped up on her shoulder. Beyond the outermost tip of the island, a whole row of canoes came into sight. It was Captain Longstocking and his people returning home after a long, successful hunt. Pippi shouted and waved at them, and they waved back with their paddles. Then Pippi quickly put up the rope again, so Tommy and Danica and all the others could get down from the cave. And when the canoes came gliding into the little inlet beside the Hop Toad, a short while later, the whole crowd of children were there to greet them. Captain Longstocking embraced Pippi. "Has everything been peaceful?" he asked. "Oh yes," said Pippi. "Completely peaceful." "But Pippi, how can you say that?" said Anika. "We've had terrible things happen here." "Oh yes, I forgot," said Pippi. "No, it has not been completely peaceful, Papa Ephraim. As soon as you turn your back, things start to happen." "But my dear child, what's happened?" said Captain Longstocking anxiously. "Something really terrible," said Pippi. "Mr. Nilsson has lost his best straw hat." That is the end of chapter 10. Make sure you join us tomorrow for chapter 11, which is called Pippi Leaves Kurkura Island. I'll see you then.